Something interesting is being tested on eBay right now, and it's catching some sellers off guard. Their items are selling, but they don't know it right away. Active listings are disappearing, but they don't show as sold. And in the middle of all of this, buyers are doing something they've never been able to do before. eBay hasn't talked about what they're testing yet, but if you're not careful, this change could cause issues. So let me show you what's going on. Hello and welcome back to my weekly show where I talk about the ups and downs and in-betweens of selling on eBay. I'll be honest, I'm tired today. I did not sleep well last night, so I'm going to be pushing hard to get through this episode today, but I do have a lot to talk about. First, we're halfway through the year, if you can believe that. So I'm going to be doing a review of the first half of 2025, sort of seeing how that compares to last year, see how I'm trending towards for the year for 2025. And of course, I'll be running through my sales for the last week and my top 10 sales and all that good stuff. So we'll be doing that here in a few minutes as well. I also did go to some garage sales over the weekend. I also went to a thrift store. I haven't been to a thrift store in like 3 months, and so I actually found some decent stuff. We'll talk through all of that. But for now, let's go ahead and jump back into what eBay is testing. So it looks like eBay is testing a new feature, and it gives buyers more control after they make a purchase. So specifically, some buyers now have up to 30 minutes to make changes to their order. So things like editing the shipping address or even canceling the transaction entirely. Again, this is after the order is complete. Buyers have always been able to modify the details as a part of the checkout process, but this is after they have already clicked buy and completed the purchase. This isn't live for everyone yet, but it is starting to pop up for some buyers and sellers, and it's likely eBay is testing and watching to see how it plays out. We first saw signs of this on the eBay community forums over the last few weeks, and then Value Added Resource picked it up, but no official announcement has come from eBay. There's been no press release, nothing like that. Now, on the surface, this feature sounds helpful, and truthfully, it is helpful in a lot of ways. As a seller, you've probably dealt with that wrong address message that you get like a few seconds after an item sells, where the buyer reaches out, wants to change the address. Usually it's like an honest mistake and they just want to update the address. But if you do change the address, you sort of lose your seller protection, so you don't want to do that. And what you have to do is instead cancel the order and have them repurchase, but all of that is super annoying. Sometimes the buyer never repurchases, you lose out on a sale. So giving buyers a window of time after buying to fix their own mistakes seems like a pretty smart move, and I think it will definitely reduce that wrong address problem. So I do like it for that reason. And if buyers have the ability to cancel the order on their own, I'm okay with that too. I mean, obviously I don't want buyers to cancel their orders. I would rather they keep their orders, but I would much rather a buyer cancel their order before I ship it rather than after if they no longer want the item, or it's much better than dealing with a return later. So I'm totally fine with that ability too. But the way that all of this is being implemented, that's where it starts to get complicated, because this isn't just a window to fix the address or cancel it. It also looks like it's a hold on the order. And so from what we can tell, when a buyer places an order with this feature active, eBay appears to delay the actual processing of that order for up to 30 minutes. That means during that time, the order doesn't show up on your sold list. It's no longer actively listed. You don't get a sold notification. And as far as like your dashboard is concerned, no sale actually happened and the item is no longer able to be purchased. And that's where problems can start. So imagine you list a one-of-a-kind item in high demand. A potential buyer, maybe they're watching the item, they reach out to you, they message you asking if it's still available, and you haven't gotten a notification that it's sold, so you assume it's still available. But then you go looking through your active listings to send the buyer a link, but you can't find it, so you assume it just mysteriously vanished from eBay, and you relist it and send the buyer that new listing. Meanwhile, what you don't know is that the item actually sold and is in this 30-minute purgatory. So now you've got two buyers and one item and need to cancel one of them. And while this scenario seems like an edge case, one seller on the community forums said this exact thing happened to them already. The original buyer purchased the item, but the payment didn't process until like 30 minutes later. Meanwhile, the seller, assuming the item was still unsold, but just mysteriously disappeared, relisted it and sold it to someone else. And all of this was caused by a delay that they didn't know existed in the first place. There's also this scenario where the buyer could reach out after purchasing, with a question or shipping instructions, and you wouldn't even know it's been sold yet, which is weird. It does seem like there's a better way eBay could be implementing this feature. Like maybe they should be making sellers aware that the order's been placed right away, but perhaps not finalized. Maybe you could even see a countdown timer letting you know when the order's complete and ready to ship. I don't know. There's a lot of different things you could do here. So hopefully eBay thinks a little bit more about how this is implemented before they roll it out more widely. Because again, I do think it's a valuable change to allow sellers to modify their order right after purchase, especially especially if it eliminates that wrong address problem. But ideally, it's implemented in a way that doesn't create unnecessary problems, even if they're unlikely to happen. So what do you need to do here? Right now, nothing really. Just sort of be aware that this is a thing that's being tested. If it becomes more permanent in its current form, you'll need to adjust your own workflows to ensure you don't double sell anything. If I wouldn't relist something right away if it randomly disappears from your store. Wait 30 minutes or so. Don't assume that a sale didn't go through just because it's not in your orders yet. Again, wait 30 minutes. I think it's just like building in a sort of like 30-minute buffer on sales, honestly, which is weird. I'm not really sure. Hopefully, if this becomes more widespread, eBay will give us some additional information on how we should be handling it. And if you've noticed this already or run into the issues like the one I described, let us know down below because it'll help other sellers know what to expect. And it'll help give us all sort of a better idea on how widespread this test actually is. All right, like I said, I did go to some garage sales and even a thrift store, so let's take a look at what I picked up this week. All right, had a pretty slow day at garage sales today, to be honest. Not a whole lot of things that I picked up here, but we'll walk through what I did find, starting with this Honeywell Wi-Fi thermostat. I paid $5. This is an open box item. I think it'll probably go for $25, maybe $30 total. Also this dimmer, this tabletop dimmer, this is worth probably $10 to $15. I only paid $1 for it, so not going to make me a whole lot of money. Did find some good clothes here. This is Untuckit. This is a nice brand, an extra large long sleeve shirt from Untuckit. This thing should probably go for $25 to $30. I bought it for $3 at a garage sale. And then I got a bunch of swim trunks here. So let's take a look and see what I got here. First is a pair of Chubbies. These were $3, 2XL. These will probably go for $25 to $30. This is a pair of Patagonia. I think I paid the same amount for it. Also, look at these nice tags that the person put at the garage sale. Very high quality. $3 was the cost on this one. Another pair of Chubbies, again, probably going to go for about $25 to $30, and then another pair of Patagonia for probably $25 to $30 as well. That's it. That's all I got at garage sales this week. It's been like 3 months since I've been to a thrift store, but I went to a thrift store yesterday and picked up some stuff. I actually found some decent stuff. I was kind of surprised. First up is this Aqua Lung vintage scuba mask, goggles. This thing, $4.99 is what I paid. A little bit dirty. I need to clean it up. It seems to be in pretty good shape, though. These things are going to go for probably $40 to $50. Kind of surprising. Also got this Microsoft Surface keyboard. Kind of paid up for it. What did I pay? Yeah, $9, which is kind of expensive. And it goes for about $40, maybe $50. $30 to $40, I would say. Which, not a whole lot of margin, but the sell-through is really good, so it'll sell very quickly. Check this out. I also got this big bag of belt buckles. I haven't looked at what's in there, but it was only $4.99. And some belt buckles can do really well. I have no idea if there's any good ones in here. I'll open it up here in a second and we'll take a look. I also got this Estes Sky Ranger vintage RC plane. I think this thing is from 2002. This is brand new, never been opened. What did I pay for it? $4.99. Paid $4.99 for it, and it should go for about $50 plus shipping. And finally, this lamp. This lamp, what brand is it? I forget already. It's a vintage lamp from the 80s, Underwriter Laboratories. Couldn't find any exact comps on it, but for $4.99, I'm going to guess based on similar comps, it'll go for about $40 to $50 for this desk lamp. So I opened up all of these belt buckles, and this is what we've got here. Probably nothing super great, to be honest. My guess is this Colt Revolver belt buckle is going to be the best one. After checking comps, it looks like this Great American belt buckle is probably the best one at maybe $20 to $25. The rest of these are going to go for $10 to $20 or so. But yeah, actually a pretty decent haul for the thrift store. So coming back to my numbers, we are halfway through the year, if you can believe that. We're almost here in July. So I wanted to go back and look and see how I've been performing this year so far and sort of compare that to last year. So let's just take a look at that real quick. Again, this is year-to-date 2025. I have a gross sale amount of $31,544 and a net sale amount of $18,354. So my goal for the year for 2025 is to hit $30,000 net. And so I do this part-time, so that's reflected in my goals as well. And sitting at 18,000 halfway through the year, that means if I just do exactly what I did the first half, I would get about $36,000 net for the year, which would obviously be well above my goal. But I think that is a little misleading because the second half of the year is typically way more busy than the first half of the year because of Q4. So I'm feeling pretty good about my numbers so far. You can see my, January was my lowest month. It looks like maybe March, 2155. $3,285 net. January was pretty low. February was a little bit higher with $3,057 net. March was $2,155, again pretty low. But then April, really high there, $4,221. May was a little bit lower, $2,896 net. And then in June so far, we're sitting at $4,000 net, so a really good June. So definitely not a summer slowdown for me. Looks like for the year, my average gross per sale was $50.15 and $28.81 average net. So that is pretty good. I usually sit at around $22 or $21 average net, so that's higher. Let's just compare this to last year. It looks like last year I did $59,100 in gross sales and just barely hit my net goal of $30,000 with $407 over. And again, you'll see that I did have a little bit of a slowdown in the summer last year, with January and February being higher than the summer months, but you can see right September and October and November really picking up, and December being my highest. And so I do expect that to be the case this year as well. So I definitely think my numbers are going to ramp up in the second half of the year. I think I'll go past my goal of $30,000. I'm feeling pretty good about that, unless something catastrophic happens. But you can see there last year, my average net per sale was $19.80. This year so far, it's almost $10 more. So I'm just selling higher value inventory. So that's pretty good. But curious to hear how the year is going for you so far. Are you trending towards your goals? This half year mark is a good time to stop and reflect on your yearly numbers and see how you think it might play out over the next half of the year based on what you did in the first half. So let me know down below, how are you doing this year? Let's go ahead and take a look at this last week in particular. Looks like this past 7 days, I had a gross sale amount of $1,896 and a net sale amount of $1,222. So my goal at the weekly level is right around $600 net, because that is, if I make $600 net every week, that is just about $30,000 net for the year. So I doubled my net for the week, which is really good. That's because I had one really big sale. So I'll be talking about that here in a minute as I talk through my top 10 sales. My average gross per sale for the week was $65.38. The average net per sale, way higher than normal, $42.15, a good high net profit margin of 64%. Scrolling on down here, I spent $303 on new inventory. Part of that is a bulk buy that I did. Cost of goods that sold was $148. The marketplace fees I paid over the last 7 days was $307 and $219 on shipping labels. Looks like I had 32 new listings. 35 is my goal, so almost hit my goal. Out of that, 29 sales. Looks like my average time to list was 6 days. That's just the time between purchasing and listing. You want that number to be as low as possible. Otherwise, it just means you're building a death pile if that number is very high. So you want to have a low average time to list. You also really want to have a low average time to sell. That's the difference between list time and sale. And so this is right around my store average all time is 3 months. So on average, things take 3 months for them to sell after I list them. And my return on investment for the past 7 days was 816%, which is a little bit higher than my average. My average is right around 600%. All right, let's jump into my top 10 sales for the week. Coming in at number 10 are these Born Harrison Chukka boots. I got these not that long ago, really, 17 days ago maybe. Looks like I purchased them on June 7th. So yeah, a couple of weeks ago. Did take a little while to list, 17 days to list, but once I listed them, they were out in 4 days. I feel like in Flipwise, we need to use this in some different way. When you have a high time to list and a low time to sell, that just means you had a valuable item sitting there waiting to be listed that sold relatively quickly after it was listed. And so this is a good example of like, hey, go list your stuff, because it took 17 days to list and only 4 days to sell. I got these at a garage sale for $5. And again, it took 4 days to sell for $35, free shipping. I did take a best offer on this. Somebody messaged me and said, would you take $30 for it? Normally I just ignore those messages entirely, but $30 was like relatively close and I had nothing to do at the time. And I said, I'll do it for $35. They agreed on it. So we sold it and the net return was $12.98 on these Born brand Chukka boots. Coming in at number 9 is this antique Eagle cast iron mini stove here. So when I showed this on the channel a few weeks ago, I guess, I got it at a garage sale, I think, maybe an estate sale. Yeah, garage sale for $1. I think I said that it was a toy, and a couple of y'all in the comments called out that it was actually a salesman sample. And so I guess back when, stoves and ovens used to look like this, salesmen would go around to houses with these miniature replica stoves, and that's what this is. So I guess it can also be used as a toy. But so if you called that out. I appreciate it. I updated my listing. It did sell in 5 days for $26.98. That's $19.99 plus $6.99 in shipping. The net return ended up being $14.49 on this cool little cast iron stove toy sample display. So pretty cool find. Coming in at number 8 is this Microsoft Surface keyboard. You just saw this in the thrift store video. It's been so long since I had been to a thrift store. I really like going to thrift stores, but usually in garage sale season, I just don't go all that often because I'm getting most of my inventory from garage sales. But it was kind of fun to go back to a thrift store. My wife and I had a date night, and so we're like, well, what do you want to do? Let's go to a thrift store. That's the kind of people that we are, as we go to thrift stores on date nights. But I did find this Microsoft Surface keyboard. It sold in 1 day, so I knew it was going to sell very quickly. I did pay up. I paid $9 for it at the Salvation Army, and so that is pretty expensive. But I knew it was going to sell very quickly. So it sold for $36.98. That's $29.99 plus $6.99 in shipping. The net return was $14.95. So just another good example of walking around the thrift store and seeing a $15 bill laying around. Again, not going to make the most money, but when you know it's going to sell very quickly, why not? Coming in at number 7 is this. What is this? This is a plush. This is a frog plush. This was interesting. I got it from a friend, so I have no money into it. Oh, no, that's not true. I got it at a garage sale for 50 cents back in 2024, May of 2024. So a year ago, a little over a year ago. So that's what it took to sell. $27.99. That's $21 sale price and $6.99 in shipping. The net return was $17.25. I'm calling this one out because y'all hear me talk about this on the channel, where people that are messaging you a bunch of questions typically can be problematic. This is a situation where I got a message about this, and it was a perfect example of like one that you should respond to instead of ignoring. And they said, hey, I didn't have the dimensions in this. And so I probably should have put the dimensions in this first. But the lady reached out and said, hey, I think there's 2 sizes of this. Can you tell me if it's the smaller or the larger one? Because my daughter just lost hers and she is very upset. So that's a very motivated buyer right there. And so I did go down and measure it and replied back right away and was like, yeah, I think it's the 18-inch model. I expected her to buy it, and she did, but what was kind of interesting is that she sent a best offer. And I had best offers turned on this because it was an older item. And I was like, really? You're going to send a best offer on this after I just did the work? It was a fair best offer. It was like a couple dollars off. So whatever, but I don't know. I was a little bit miffed that they sent a best offer after asking me to go do some extra work, but it's totally fine. I don't care. I made the sale, $27.99 plus $27.99 was the total. The net return was $17.25. Coming in at number 6 are these Ariat clogs. I'm calling these out because I think they were returned, right? Yeah. So I bought and sold them back in 2024. Did get a return opened up on them. I relisted it, resold it, and looks like at the end of all of that happening, after having all those selling costs and return shipping costs of $7.52, I still made $13.08. And so I just like to call out when I make sales on things that were returned and relisted, just to show that you often don't end up losing a ton of money. You end up making less money than you otherwise would have, but you don't. I'm never really like in the negative on a return unless I can't relist it and can't resell it. So, but this time around, these sold for $36.98, and the net return was $21.91. But because of that return, I did have some of those selling costs, so that reduced the net return in total down to that $13.08. Ariat's just a good brand to look out for. Very, very popular brand right now. It is pretty saturated, so there's a lot of competition out there for this stuff, but it's just still a good brand that people are looking for. Coming in at number 5 is this Department 56 Margaritaville holiday ornament. This thing had a little button that you pressed it and it played some Jimmy Buffett music. It took 17 days to sell for $41.98. That's $34.99 plus $6.99 in shipping. The net return here on number 5 is $30.09. This thing is pretty small too. I can't really tell how big it is in this picture, but it is just a Christmas ornament. And so that's a pretty good price, on a Christmas ornament. Pretty happy to get $30.09 on that. This is just, the reason I picked this up is I just knew it was going to do pretty well. One, Department 56 is collectible. Often they create these items in collaboration with other brands like Margaritaville, and they're limited. They don't always make them. They stop making them after some point. And so there's a limited amount of this stuff, and there's people that like the brand, they're in demand. And so they often go for a lot of money. And this was actually one of the cheaper ones that I bought at a garage sale. I have a couple other Department 56 Margaritaville pieces that are listed in the 100 and 200, which I expect are going to sell closer to Christmas time. And so this one sold now though, and still $41.98 really happy with that $30 net return. Coming in at number 4 are these rollerblades. I've had these for a while. Did these get returned as well? They didn't get returned. I think they got canceled. No, there's no returns on that. I've had these for 10 months. They sold for $59.98. The net return was $30.82. I got them at a garage sale for $10. So to me, this one was just a no-brainer. Rollerblade is a good brand. It's a desirable brand. These were kid size, so I think that's probably why they took a little bit longer to sell. They were new in the package, new in the box. There was a little bit of box damage, and I called that out. But, for $10, and I knew they were going to sell for $50 or $60. It did take a while, but it took until summer, which makes sense. But 10 months they sat in my inventory before selling for $59.98 and that net return of $30.82. Coming in at number 3, I was happy to sell this one. You just saw this one on the thrift store video as well. This is just a super cool find, and this was like in the toy section of the thrift store. This is a vintage U.S. Divers Aqualung mask, has tempered glass. It's really actually cool. I don't have a pool or anything. Otherwise I would have, submerged my head in water to see how it actually looked. But it was just a full pane of glass in front of you that gave you this full not 360, maybe 180 degree view. Just much different than some of the cheaper, newer goggles that you can get. And again, you're just not going to find, they don't make this stuff new anymore. And this is a vintage item that people really want. When I was doing comp research on this, I just couldn't find this exact style. I found one of this exact style that had sold in the $70 to $80 range, while there was a lot of others that were very similar, but not exact. And so I priced it up, kind of expecting it to take a while to sell, but it didn't. It took 3 days and it sold for $79.98. I paid $5 at Salvation Army. My net return was $54.91. And by the way, this was broken. The strap was cut off, and so they're going to have to restrap it. But still, even with all that, I got almost $80 for it. So that's a really good find at the Salvation Army. By the way, this Salvation Army, I hadn't been there in at least 3 months. It was so packed with inventory. It looked like a bomb went off in there. I'm not sure if they're under different management or what, but it was crazy just how much stuff there was. And it was kind of fun picking through it. It's almost like you're picking through a hoarder situation. There was so much stuff. So coming in at number 2, you guys might remember this from a garage sale just a few weeks ago. I paid $25 for this Moen oil rubbed bronze faucet and shower handle here. This thing sold for a lot, $256.98. So this was the one where at the garage sale, the woman had printed out an Amazon listing from where she bought it. And it even had the note on the top saying you purchased this back in February or something for $400 and some dollars. And she was asking $25 for it. And so this is a good example of letting the sellers do your research for you. I was like, oh, cool, thanks. Like at $25 and it sells for $400, it was a no-brainer. I just knew that I was going to get at least half of that, if not more, on eBay. And I did. I got $256.98. The net return on this one was $173.47. So just a really good pickup at a garage sale. All right, coming in at number 1, check this out. This is a huge sale. This is a pair of sunglasses that sold for $436.99. The interesting thing, though, this is the second time I've sold them. These got sold way back in December for $506, and they returned them because they didn't know that they were frames only. So when you're selling sunglasses, if the lenses are prescription, you technically cannot sell them on eBay because they are prescription. So you have to sell them as frames only. And I run into this where, for whatever reason, buyers just don't see that they are frames only. But you tell me, you look at this listing, like, did you notice that it says frames only? I don't know how more obvious I can make it that they are frames only. So fingers crossed that this person knows that they are frames only. Sometimes you might think, oh, I'm going to message the buyer and make sure that they understand that they're frames only. The problem is that what if they don't respond? You still have to send the item out. So I did not do it in this situation, but when I do reach out to a buyer, what I do is I say, hey, if I would have done it in this situation, I would have said something like, hey, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that these were frames only. I'm going to be shipping these on Monday at 9 a.m. If you let me know before that you didn't know they didn't have lenses, I can cancel it for you. Otherwise, these will be shipping out on Monday. So you just want to don't leave yourself in a situation where you have to rely on a response from the buyer. Let them know what's going on. Let them know you will ship it and when. But if they want you to cancel, let me know before then. So fingers crossed. I didn't do that here. So we'll see. Fingers crossed, though, because $436, I'd like it to not get returned again. But assuming it doesn't, my net return, $347.46 on this pair of Jacques Marie Mage. Maybe that's how you say it. These JMM sunglasses frames. So just a crazy amount of money to sell a pair of sunglasses for. So this one was really fun. Fingers crossed that it does not get returned. Lights out. Man, I am so tired. I just slept so bad last night, and I knew I was going to have to do a video today, and I was just doing everything I could to get myself perked up to be able to make this video. So if I was feeling a little bit off today, that's exactly why. I did not get a whole lot of sleep. So I'm going to try to get this edit banged out and published, and maybe I'll go take a nap. A nap sounds pretty good right now. But yeah, it was kind of fun going to a thrift store with my wife. We had not been to a thrift store in a while. Usually I pick up going to thrift stores again right around October or November when garage sale season winds down. So we'll swap garage sales for a couple thrift store trips per week. And I really, really like going to thrift stores. And I know they're overpriced and all that stuff, but still, it's just not too difficult to find stuff worth buying to resell. And also just finding stuff for yourself. Most of my clothes, honestly, are coming from thrift stores. Garage sales too, but less so garage sales. But I just find so much good. I would much rather buy high quality clothing for a discount that's used than buying cheap clothing that's going to wear out and have to be replaced in a few years. And so that's my method in thrift stores and garage sales and secondhand. Just a great way to buy high quality stuff for a fraction of the cost. And also it just retains its value, And so if I want to end up reselling it later, I can, because it still has a decent resale value for the most part. And again, it depends on what it is, but it's like, I start to, this idea has been bouncing around in my head lately where it's like reselling is almost like a life skill. I think everyone should know how to resell stuff because it's not super difficult, but the power that it gives you is pretty immense, And so it's just to be able to know how to efficiently take something that you no longer use and resell it for a decent amount of profit is just very valuable. And I think I talked about this in a video a few weeks ago where we bought a dishwasher, and as they were ripping the old dishwasher out, I was taking all the pieces that could be sold as replacement parts, and that just reduced the total cost of our new dishwasher by a couple $100. That's a skill. That's a valuable thing, and everyone should have this skill, I think, of knowing how to sell stuff. And it just keeps things out of the landfill. It reduces your own costs. It just opens you up to a lot of opportunity when you know how to resell stuff. And so I love that I get to come out every day and every week and share my passion about reselling and share how to do it. And it's just, I really enjoy that. It's such a nice feeling to be able to share all that with you. All right, y'all, no food talk today. We'll see you next week.